within the country. The comprehensiveness of coverage is impressive. It seems that no internal displacement, no migration-related conflict, and no significant international migration over the last century has escaped the author's attention. A not insignificant contribution of the book might therefore be to serve as a treasure trove for others who wish to explore in greater detail one or more of the numerous instances of migration catalogued in the book. India Moving may well be the starting point and provocation for numerous PhDs. India Moving should be read, savoured, and applauded. I hope it will encourage and embolden other Indian economists to emulate this example of undertaking rigorous but accessible and interesting scholarship. I cannot recommend this first effort from Professor Chinmay Tumbe highly enough. Arvind Subramanian, Chief Economic Advisor, Government of India. Author's note: everyone has a migration story. I can vividly remember the day I had first landed in a new place for schooling, for higher studies, for work, and even for love. Divya, my wife, and I have now lived in 5 different cities across 3 continents. And when we look back at old photographs, we recollect how we pulled it off through beautiful landscapes, unending winters, strange furniture designs, and restrictive visa laws. Memory, nostalgia, and selective amnesia are powerful ingredients used to pepper personal and family migration narratives. These migration stories collectively form a system of internal and international migrations, of voluntary and involuntary migrations, and many other such typologies. This book is about one regional migration system, India, which has witnessed some of the largest voluntary and involuntary mass migrations in history. It is also the first book on the history of both internal and international migration, and voluntary and involuntary migration related to India. The book describes the origins of the incredible human diversity found within India and covers the migrations of artisans, merchants, slaves, students, warriors, workers, women, and many others. It reveals the persistence of labor migration since the late 19th century and provides a new perspective on the migration of business communities both within and outside India. It shows how 25 million people who traced their roots to India in the past 3 centuries were dispersed across the world, from Japan to Jamaica, and why internal diasporas matter as much as international diasporas. It documents the mass migrations caused by multiple partitions, refugee crises, and other displacements in Indian history, and their disproportionate impact on particular communities. And finally, it provides a perspective on migration and development in history and in 21st century India. In writing this book, I offer 4 core arguments. First, that migration or spatial mobility is not a recent phenomenon in India, in scale or variety, and that the country currently sustains the world's largest and longest voluntary migration episode in migration history, what I call the Great Indian Migration Wave. Second, the history of migration in India has often been closely bound with the idea of circulation. Third, migration and circulation have not influenced all subgroups evenly, and in particular, the lack of substantive spatial mobility continues to disempower the lowest-ranking castes of India. Finally, I argue that greater spatial mobility is a prerequisite for maintaining the pluralistic traditions of the country. Writing a book of this nature, wide in scope and reasonably concise, requires certain maxims and justifications for the regions and time periods chosen. In general, I cover those topics that have been well researched and have some body of evidence. This is important to state because virtually every Indian community has an origin.